Hi, this is Jill Menze with PhocusWire, and we're here today with Michael Beckler of GeoSure and Mary Pat Sullivan of Phocuswright and Eva Jenner of Holland America Line. And we're talking today women in travel, so a lot of stuff to cover, including products and services for women travelers, as well as women in leadership roles that can help sort of spur those new kinds of innovations. So, Michael, tell us about GeoSure and how it helps with women's safety when they're traveling.
Sure. Our product is essentially an empowered, informed, engaged, enriched travel experience through the lens of this empowered safety awareness. And what we're trying to do is help women to have an understanding, a safety antenna, if you will, at location anywhere in the world, knowing when to raise or lower your safety antenna. And we're doing that with this tech-enabled reassurance. But it's all messaged through an empowered, engaged, informed, travel-enhancing experience.
And why did you see a need for this kind of product? Did anything like that exist? Or are you kind of coming into a space that just needed it? Or
that's a very long conversation that we can have. But essentially, it's very difficult to find a rapid understanding of safety, especially at location, and because safety changes by neighborhood to neighborhood around the world, and also express safety in a way that's not creating fear, that's not creating anxiety. And we could talk for a long time about women, why we focused on women, why we focused on LGBTQ, and why that's important, but to express it in a way that really enriches and enhances the guest and the travel experience.
To not make them feel fear.
Absolutely, improve confidence, inspire travel, elevate awareness, and make rapid decisions in this confident, cool, productive, constructive way, which is great for your organization, your employees, so on and so forth.
Right. So if Eva or Mary Pat wanted to use it, how would they use your product?
In this case, you can,
or me if I want.
You can SMS me and say, how do I know? But it's downloadable. We have free tools.
So it's app-based?
In the App Store, yes. An app in the Play Store. We have a website, geosureglobal.com. Very accessible. It's a free global app, and we have premium tools and others. But it's very accessible for
I'm downloading it.
I've traveled my whole career.
Yeah.
And last night I happened to be here with my husband, and last night we were walking down the street and he goes, "Would you do this by yourself normally? It's like 7:30 at night, it's dark." And I said, "Yeah, I do it all the time." He's like, "What are you doing? You need to know where you are." And 30 years I've been doing this, and I don't think ahead, and I don't get nervous, which is a good thing.
Right.
But I should be informed, right? So that makes sense to me.
You know, the other thing I was going to add is that I think in order to access the app or to be informed about where you're going, you need to make sure that your phone is charged. I actually have a suitcase that I can charge my phone.
Do you have an away? Is it an away suitcase?
Which is, it's fabulous because when you're at airports, you don't necessarily have access to a plug because they're all taken by all the other people in the airport. So having a carry-on luggage where I can plug it in so I have my phone charged at all times so that I can be informed of the areas I'm going to, know what's going on in the neighborhoods, have GeoSure and look at that. I mean, I think it's so important it's the first step, I think, for safety is making sure you have a fully charged device.
My husband's listening to you now too. So what would I find out though? Like what kind of information?
So it provides a numerical score from 1 to 100. So it's a simple, rapid understanding. 1 being the safest, 100 being the least safe. And we cover 35,000 cities and neighborhoods around the world. There's 7 categories, but LGBTQ and women are the predominant. What we're really focused on here, and which is most important to us and very important to organizations. And so it provides a contextual understanding. And again, I get back to this sort of safety antenna. I think it was Dorothy who said, when you're making decisions at the panel today, when you're making decisions, there's a data decision, but there's also an inner voice decision. We're trying to help in a tech-enabled inner voice in a sense. And so it's just this rapid, empowered, engaged sort of experience that we're trying to create.
Another product that we've written about on PhocusWire is a ride-hailing company called Safer, and it's designed with women's safety in mind. So they have a lot of female drivers. They have a lot of interest from female drivers. They have women riders, obviously. But so my two questions around that would be, why is this kind of product important for women travelers, and also why is it important that we have women drivers too? Because they haven't always been given a fair opportunity. So
I have a 19-year-old daughter, and she takes Uber, right, wherever, or Lyft, wherever she's going.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't thought about how dangerous that possibility is until recently.
Mm-hmm.
And I've, like I said, been used to traveling by myself. I never thought about what position I'm putting her in. And knowing that there'd be female drivers, especially when I'm all around the world,
Mm-hmm.
then I can have that confidence to know that I'm not putting myself in harm's way. I think it's a great idea. We take too much for granted.
Yeah.
I think as a population.
We do, and I think that whenever I'm traveling and I'm in an Uber or Lyft, whenever I have a female driver, especially at night in a city that I'm not that familiar with, I'm like, there's something in me that goes, oh, okay, good. And there's that confidence and that, okay, things should be great and nothing's going to go wrong. I think you're right that we take things for granted when we step into one of those cars, that everything's going to be great, but I think it adds another level of confidence in the ride that you're on when you're a female and you have a female driver.
Yeah.
It's also great that they have the opportunity to
yeah.
be drivers,
Right.
because I don't see that many of them for these ride-hailing apps. And so giving women another vehicle to, no pun intended, to actually...
Oh, I get it. Vehicle.
I
just got it. It's a little slow.
to balance sort of the having work
Right.
and life so that they can have a more flexible schedule. So having another opportunity to be in a profession where they do have flexibility, so that if they have other responsibilities during the day or night, they can work that job into it too.
Yeah.
I think it's fabulous.
Yeah, so one of the points that Safer had made when they were talking about their product was that they'd heard from women drivers that at other companies they were told things like, you can't drive certain times of night, you can't have XYZ shifts, and I don't know if it was necessarily about their safety or what, but these women were saying, I want to drive in the middle of the night.
Right.
You shouldn't get to tell me when I can and can't choose my schedule, because I might have another job I have to go to, or I might have something
And
else.
we're in the cars in the middle of the night. So
Yeah,
I would
right.
love to know that, and I agree with you. I think that the whole concept behind Uber and Lyft is this independence, right? This opportunity for groups of entrepreneurs to take on their own
that's
business.
right.
And the fact that we're involving women in the conversation is great.
I think anytime I get in a ride share and it's a female driver, it's just an open. There's so many questions you can. How do you feel as a driver? How does what's the experience like when your riders are female, and location safety, and it's just amazing. I think it's a fantastic idea. I think it's very confidence inspiring and empowering for as a company and for drivers as well as
right.
the
As
rider
the customer.
experience.
That's
Do you think there's opportunities for other travel companies to take similar methods towards safety and women's safety? Like if Airbnb had certain filters on its site when you book, or if there's certain safety measures they could put in homes specifically around safety for women and people that might not feel safe traveling?
Again, I think it's something we take for granted and we don't think about it. And we were just actually chatting about this. This summer, I rented an Airbnb for my family, and the safety mechanism that the owner put in was that the code to get into the house was the last 4 digits of my cell phone number. And I suddenly felt so much safer, because I thought, well, who else is going to know that except the man who owns this house?
That's right.
And so it gave me peace of mind that my family was safe when I was there. And I think it's not just women travelers, but it's when you're traveling with your family, it's a whole different level of anxiety.
Totally.
And so to be able to build those things into place that give the traveler confidence, I think is a great idea.
Absolutely. Whenever we talk about what we do, everyone brings up the Airbnb question, and how do I understand what a neighborhood looks like? We're hearing more and more about hotel brands and time of day and where locations are, and is there a way to message that and telegraph it? And everyone says it'd be a fantastic capability and way to understand the location of a property. So
I think as the technology advances, there's probably other places we're not even thinking about. So as a female traveler, whenever I check into a hotel, if they give me the last room from the elevator, round the corner by myself, I keep thinking they don't know me as a customer.
Yeah.
And there has to be a way inside the technology that's built into these systems now
Yes.
Absolutely.
to make sure that as a female traveler, you didn't just put me in a really what I consider
Right.
kind of a scary spot in the hotel.
Absolutely.
Yes, I'm there for business. I don't care if I have a view, but I'd like to feel secure. And there
Right.
should be a way to build that into a profile. You know, so there's probably things we as an industry aren't even thinking about that could
Right.
make the traveler more comfortable.
Right.
There are a lot of opportunities, and I'll speak for our corporation. Carnival Corp is actually introducing through one of the brands, Princess Cruises, Ocean Medallion. And what's nice about it is it's a medallion that everyone on board the ship will get, and you can keep track of where your family members are through. We have portals, and we'll have an app that you can use, but that way you can keep track of your kids, you can keep track of your spouse or significant other or your friends, as long as you have all that information and you can look at it anywhere. You don't even have to have a device to do it, because we'll have portals on board the ship that you can just go up and check. So that helps with talking about family, whether you're a woman or you're looking after your kids, knowing where they're at and keeping track of them. It's a nice
what
little
fantastic idea, brand differentiator. It,
Right.
it improves the entire experience. It's wonderful.
As a dad with 2 girls
As a
rolling
dad-
around that
That's
ship,
right.
you're going to need that technology.
You're gonna wanna know where they're at
Little
all
beacon.
times.
Right.
I know exactly where they are.
Right. So these kinds of innovations and these safety precautions and measures, would we have more things like this if there were more women in leadership roles taking things like that into account?
Absolutely. Speaking my language now. This morning, that's where we all came off of, right? We just did this session this morning on women's leadership, and it's the first time here at Phocuswright that's happened. And we had a powerful group of women on the stage, Eva being one of them, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
But I think the message from that stage was so powerful, and the fact that the audience, the room was packed, and people wanted to stay and keep talking tells me we have a lot of work to do to make that women in leadership thing happen at a more broad level for everyone. Because yes, I'm sure that if you ask Dorothy at Best Western, they're probably looking at things for female travelers, because Dorothy's looking at everything inside the company.
Right.
You look at everything inside the company, but
Right.
if we don't have women in those leadership roles, it's not because they don't want to do it, they're not thinking about it.
Right.
So I absolutely agree.
But I think that it's also just as important to have men in the conversation. So women in the leadership roles, but as we were saying this morning, Michael, you were there with us, but there weren't a lot of men in the room.
Right.
And I think in order for us to make a change, that men and women have to work together, and men need to understand the issues that women face that may be different than what men deal with in a corporate setting or while traveling. So I think you have to marry the two and have men and women in the conversation.
Absolutely, and I agree. While women leadership roles are very important to telegraph travel safety and all these elements that we're discussing, I also think there's a from the bottoms up, listening to your employees and knowing what their concerns are and sharing internally what you want, and it goes beyond just employees. I think it's throughout the entire organizational stakeholder network. So that involves everyone. You can create this safety stewardship sort of network, which is an amazing way to brand an organization. It helps participate. It helps keep everyone participated and engaged in the conversation. To me, that can be very powerful.
That's where the power comes from, is the diversity of conversation.
That's
right? We
right.
talked about that this morning.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the stats that came out of that breakfast this morning was that a lot of businesses think that one woman out of 10 in leadership roles is enough.
Yeah.
That's
how
shocking.
upsetting is that
That's
statistic?
not enough.
It's shocking.
That was from McKinsey, and the statistic was that 1 in 10, if there's 1 in 10 women in a leadership role, across the board, people seem to believe that is enough. And that, to me, is a frightening statistic.
It is, and it goes back to what you were saying, Mary Pat, about having the diversity, right, and making sure. And I think there's another. This may be from the same study, the McKinsey study, that that companies that perform better have that diversity at the top level, because it's so important to have different mindsets and different ideas. And you get that when you mix women in, when you mix in other ethnicities, whatever it is, you have to have that diversity.
Actually, that was the Deloitte. We had 3 pieces of research that we looked at this morning. We had a piece of Deloitte research that actually said that there is a financial and business case for diversity at the leadership level.
Yeah.
And that there's proof that says, look, folks, the companies do better if there are women in leadership. And so I think it's important. And then we did that our individual research among the Phocuswright attendees. And that's where I got a little bit scared, because we aren't doing as good a job as an industry as we thought we were. But travel and technology, we have an opportunity here to really make sure that in those 2 industries we raise the bar.
Yeah. Why do you think that businesses are not having women in leadership roles when you have the data and the proof that they could do better with women? And why?
I think it's conversation.
There's definitely not a direct answer to that, but.
Yeah, I think, we're especially focused on women and LGBTQ and diversity and inclusion, and I thought it was a remarkable fact. I would have guessed, actually, it may have been similar, but I didn't realize that it was so few, and I think they're to open up that conversation and have more discussions at Phocuswright and to change it. And we're here as part of the travel industry. We can try to engage that discussion and expand the conversation, and hopefully that changes. And 5 years from now, 3 years from now, 2 years from now, maybe it's a different conversation. Yeah. So,
well, I think if you look at the statistics of the Phocuswright attendee base, maybe it's the people here that need to look at it too.
Absolutely,
it's a very small percentage that are women versus men that are at this event, and the way to grow leadership is to give them education and opportunities to expand.
Absolutely.
Right? And so we need that to change too.
Well, and that's why I think that, Mary Pat, the panel that you had this morning, the Women's Leadership Initiative, is so important. And I think that as it builds momentum every year, you'll have more men in the room, and that educates, that creates the conversation, and maybe a light bulb goes off, and that's when things start to change.
I totally agree. It creates a positive feedback effect where you expand the conversation, and next year the topic could be about women in leadership, but in the travel industry, and maybe there's a full day panel. Maybe there's a lot that could happen.
Definitely desire to have it happen, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and one of the other stats you brought up was that chief technology officers they're more open to women. And
that's a home run stat for the Phocuswright attendees.
Yeah.
Because that stat is also from Deloitte, and what that stat says is that there isn't an overall void in the C-suites, because the CIO position has a very high, not very high, that's an exaggeration, but a much higher level of females in the CIO position than the CEO or the CFO. So at least in the technology space, there seems to be a rise there, and I think with all this STEM education that's happening, I bet there'll be more of a rise as we go on.
Yeah. And the other thing was also that we're going to get more women involved if we, at individual companies, have mentorship programs and leadership programs. So can you talk a bit about why having those as resources are important?
I mean, you can talk about that.
Yeah, so at Holland America Line, we created a mentorship program within the sales organization because it was something that was missing, and it was great because most of the people involved in it are actually women. They raised their hand and said, I want to have a mentor and be a part of this formal program that we have. But I look at my own personal experience, and I had a mentor who helped guide my career, and I was able to talk to her about what I wanted to do, and I was able to switch careers because she advocated for me and understood the things that I wanted to do and how I wanted to expand sort of what my skill sets are, and so she really helped push me forward. And I think that's such an important thing to have, whether it's a sponsor or a mentor, for especially women that are coming up on the technology side especially. It doesn't have to be another woman. It could be a man that could be your mentor. Yeah. But someone who understands who you are, someone that you can freely talk to. It could be your boss, but maybe not. Maybe it's someone that's in a different company or a different profession, but someone that kind of understands who you are, what you bring to the table, and helps to guide your career. I think that's so important to have.
Absolutely. I just think it's such a key attribute of a company to the personal interaction, the growth and development of individuals. it engages them in a broader way in an organization. It's so powerful. We're a small company, but in any kind of environment where we can help and encourage and mentor and sponsor and engage our ecosystem, that's what we like to do. That's part of our vision and values. And so I just think it's very important for small organizations as well as for large multinationals.
I think that's a good point, the smaller organization or the larger organization. One of the pieces of research that came out when we did the survey with the Phocuswright attendees was that if you look at the diversity here, there are a large percentage of people who are working in companies of 10 or less employees. And then there are a large number of people working in companies of 10,000 or more.
Right.
And you can get lost in a 10,000 or more company, and you can get support in a 10 or, so it depends, but they may have more resources. But we did have a lot of people come up to us at the end and say, I want that program. We don't have it in our company. Can we start it? Well, I don't know. I don't know. We're going to do our best. We're going to keep this conversation going because we hit a nerve, clearly. So we'll figure out what else we can offer in terms of dialogue and discussion among the people that are here. So that would be ideal.
To me, it's a no-brainer. Every organization should have that program. If there's not an individual that runs it, there should be some set up to establish it because it just enhances the brand. It's helpful for recruiting, for retention. It's just it's positive across the board, I think. So.
I think another part of mentorship, and this is a different way of thinking it as opposed to having just one person be your mentor, is having a network of people that you know and trust that you can go out to. So making sure that you, whatever your network is, whether it's people within your organization or if people within your profession, but expanding that and ensuring that you have people that you can bounce ideas off of or thoughts. So having that network of people that you trust.
I agree. That's so important.
So I think the big takeaway here is that we're having these conversations and we're getting women in leadership roles, and that can spawn product innovations that ultimately helps the traveler, which is that's what everyone in this industry is trying to do.
If we don't do that, we're all in big trouble. So that's a great point. Exactly. Absolutely.
Well, Michael, Mary Pat, Eva, thank you so much for being here. And
thank you, Jill.